Welcome to Our Mutual Interest. I'm your host, Mena Fombo, but it's your stories that make this show more than a housing podcast. Spades in the ground, let's go. Culture is the invisible thread that connects us to our past, shapes our present, and guides our future. We're talking about what makes us a community and how culture, both personal and collective, shapes who we are and what we stand for. I'm joined by Taryn, but first, over to you.
Culture is quite a diverse thing if you think about it. It's not just where you're from and which families you belong to. It's the environment you live in with the people that you live in. So coming from South Africa with quite a diverse culture, you've got 11 official languages. Just communicating sometimes is a difficult thing. So culture to me, sometimes it's too framing. You're trying to put something in a box which really doesn't exist, because my family, for example, my dad's British and my mom is a Zimbabwean farmer. Hugely different types of people that ended up coming together, lived in the UK, lived in Zimbabwe, lived in South Africa, and have had this huge amount of experience and diversity which has influenced the way I think and the way that I behave. But like if I just tell you that I'm a white African, born in Africa, people don't really understand that. Moving to Wales has been quite an eye-opening thing because everyone's kind, and the diversity of culture here is quite surprising, having people from all over around the world. Seeing people from Spain, from Wales, from England, from Ireland, it's really nice to be able to speak to people and get a diverse understanding of where people come from. It's quite surprising.
To me, culture is everybody living together, accepting each other, accepting others' differences. My mother was Welsh, my mother's family are all Welsh, and I would never move out of Wales now. I class myself as a Welsh person. Welsh people are very accepting of everybody. Community to me is people that live together, work together, and hopefully go forward with a nice harmonious lifestyle, which is what everybody really wants at the end of the day.
You know, keeping it real, culture is when you meet your tribe. It's when you meet the people who are like-minded, who think along the same ways as you, but challenge you in a good way. They push you to do better. They push you to be the best self that you can be. So for me, that's what culture is. It's finding my tribe, finding my people.
So Taryn, I'm really looking forward to just having a chat with you and just finding out a bit more about who you are, what you do, but also I think we've just come out of the annual members meeting for Merthyr Valley's Homes, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But I guess one of the big things for me about joining the organisation was just kind of getting a sense of what does the culture look like. Obviously in my role, it's intrinsic to what I do. So one of the things I've noticed since coming here, we have I guess I'd call it like a greeting culture, or a welcoming culture, which is from the moment I had my interview through to when I started. You walk through any corridor, you get in the lift, up the stairs, you go to any meeting in the kitchen, and everybody you see greets you. And that's been my experience. On the first day, I literally messaged my partner at lunchtime. She was like, oh, how's it going? How's it going? And I was like, well, it feels a bit like Stepford Wives. And if anybody...
Okay.
And I said, if anybody knows that reference, I think it's like a movie, Stepford Wives. There's lots of different versions of it. But essentially, all the women are like these robots, and they kind of are just perfect robots that do everything that the men have programmed them to do. And so for me, it was just a bit weird that everybody, in a really nice way, but everybody was doing the same thing, which was welcoming me and greeting me. Yeah. And I think that kind of experience is not something that you get in a normal day-to-day life. People are much more insular. When you go to shops, maybe people don't greet you as much, or when you walk into a co-working space, people don't do that. So for me, as part of the organisational culture, that was the first thing that stood out to me. It's almost like acknowledging that you exist. You walk past another human and they greet you. And I love that. I thought that was great.
I think that's a Valleys thing, just in general. We took our children to London a few Christmases ago. And we've always lived in the Valleys. I say hiya to everybody. If I'm walking down the street, I have no idea who that person is. And I say, morning, afternoon, nice day. When you walk in the dog, exactly the same. I have conversations with complete strangers while walking round the lake in Cyfarthfa Park. So we went to London with our children, and I think my daughter must have been about 8 then. So my son was probably about 11 or 12. And we you smile at everybody. It's force of habit. You do it around here a lot. And people don't do that in London. Now, I understood that. And my kids made reference of it. why is everybody miserable around you? And that was what they said, and they were like, I just smiled at that man and he just turned his head away. Nobody looks at you, nobody looks in your face. But we make a conscious effort of it here. And I feel without doing that, you're not welcoming people. You're not making people feel like they can approach you. You've got to be approachable. And I think that's all over people's faces. So it's very rare that you get unwelcoming look from somebody, especially in Meath Valley's homes. I would say that. I feel like I fit you because everybody's the same. It is.
I love that. I can remember when I moved to London years and years ago, like I'm from Bristol, and like in Bristol you grew up speaking to bus drivers.
Yeah.
So you kind of get off the bus and you go, cheers, drive.
Cheers,
There's like
drive,
a very, maybe it's a values thing as well then.
It is, yeah.
But I can remember being in London. I remember like getting on the bus being like, oh, morning.
Yeah.
And then I can remember like getting off the bus and they have 2 doors on the buses. And so like I literally made the effort to walk to the front of the
Say
bus.
thank you.
And I was like, oh, cheers, drive. And I went out the front door and the driver, I could see the driver like look at me, but he didn't say anything or acknowledge it. And I got off and I thought, oh, should I not have done that?
yeah, absolutely. Exactly that. So yeah, we travel a lot and we find the certain countries we go to, you get that same, it's a smiley face, isn't it? Hi, morning, but others you don't. So yeah, the Meath Valley Homes has definitely nailed that one, I think. It's very rare you see somebody that's miserable. And if they are, it's because there's something wrong. So I think it's quite nice you've recognised that, actually. That's a nice feeling to think you've felt welcomed and unusually welcomed since day one.
And I think as well, like I remember then about a month later, I saw 2 new people, and straight away you're like, oh, this is the culture. And like I think I would do that anyway, to greet people. But I was like, yeah, morning, how you doing? Yeah, where are you going? Like you want to kind of pass on that feeling that you experienced, that you had when you were new, first day, second day. You want to give that straight away to everybody else. So yeah,
would it not be awful? I mean, it's hard enough starting in a new company anyway, but if you were in that new company and everybody was stone-faced and miserable, I don't care what kind of strong person you are, I'm a strong person, but I would feel not welcome and quite uncomfortable, and it's hard enough to fit in, particularly as an adult. Kids get on, they just kick a ball about and crack on with life, but as an adult it's really hard to fit in to a new friendship group. We sussing people out. So if you were made to feel like everybody had a face on, everybody was stressed, nobody smiled at you, nobody said hi, you would feel the outsider for an awful lot longer. It's really hard to break that barrier. So I think that's really nice that you've felt that. And I think everybody should. You should make a conscious effort. Even if you're not feeling, we don't all wake up with a nice, happy feeling. But what's the point of being like that to somebody else? Just, it takes 2 seconds to smile at someone and say good morning, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's an amazing sort of, I guess she's a businesswoman. She cooks, she's got her own like hair care brand. She does loads of stuff. And her closing line to all of her like TikTok reels or socials or whatever, she says, have a good day. And if you can't have a good one, don't you dare go ruining anybody else's. Because she's that amazing. Her name's Tabitha. And she's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, if you can't have a good day, don't you dare go ruining anybody else's.
Absolutely.
And I thought, I love that. Because sometimes you are having a bad day, but that doesn't mean you need to project that.
Absolutely.
But equally, I feel like culturally what I've noticed is, I know we're a trauma-informed organisation and like we're a very caring organisation. I think our 4-day week speaks to that. Absolutely. And I think the way that we communicate, the hybrid, all of those things speak to that. So I think equally if you are having a bad day, you can go and talk to somebody about
it. You can. Oh yeah, we've got all that as well, haven't we? I know that if I was feeling a bit glum, that I've got people in Meath Valley's homes that I can specifically go and speak to. There's nobody I don't speak to, as you probably know, but there's nobody that I would feel uncomfortable approaching. We had a meeting, in a democratic body meeting, and one of the tenant representatives said, some employees may not feel comfortable enough to approach senior management. And I went, can I just stop? Because I would 100% high five Michelle walking down the corridor, and she's our chief exec. There's not an intimidation hierarchy in Meath Valley's home, so everybody's approachable. I would, if I felt glum, like I wasn't very well in here. A couple of weeks ago I had COVID, I didn't know, trooping on as usual. And Michelle, bear in mind how many people work underneath Michelle. And Michelle said to me, you okay? You don't look very well. to me, I've never had that before in any other company where somebody in as high a level comes over and just comes to have a chat with you and recognises that you don't look well. I went home because of that and done a test and I had COVID. I would never have known. I would have just trooped on because that's what we do, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And again, personalities, and I think that speaks to the culture of the organisation and who we hire and the values. And I'm someone who, you're just clocking who's around you and you're just paying attention to what's going on, I think. And if you can see someone's personality, you can be like, hang on a second, they're a bit, what's going on today? Let me just check in. So I guess if you were to summarise what you think culture means, what does it mean to you?
I feel culture is a feeling. That's the way I come across, because how can you it's really hard to describe it. Everybody's got different ways. So when you brought up with different expectations then. So that's your family culture. Like my mother would never accept me being mean to somebody or bullying, or you eat your food, you don't waste, you clean up, you're helpful, you're polite. But then there's a different culture then when you sort of go into a workplace. You carry your values from home into work, but yeah, it's a feeling and a way of expressing yourself in that environment, I think. If you're talking culturally around the world, then again, that's again really different interpretations on what culture is, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think like everybody that we've heard speak and like, I think everybody has their own interpretations of what it means. I think I find it interesting even just asking that question, because some people automatically go to all different types of people around the world. And then some people go much more insular and they're sort of like, well, the culture in my house is we take our shoes off. Do you know what I mean? Or like you said, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
I think to kind of summarize, like shared values, beliefs, practices, a group identity, all of those things form part of culture. It could be like nations, places. Yeah. But I love this quote. There's a quote by Marcus Garvey, who's a Pan-African activist. And he says, a people without knowledge of their history, origin and culture is like a tree without roots.
Absolutely. That's a really good saying.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that just encompasses to me how important just understanding or being able to articulate what your culture looks like. Yeah. So you may not be able to describe it. Like I said, it's a feeling, but like knowing that for me, like if we use that example from earlier, knowing that when you walk into Merthyr Valley's homes, we greet each other. Yeah. I think knowing that when you walk into your friend's house, we all take our shoes off. Yeah. Or knowing that if you make a drink, you offer it everybody. Yeah. It can be that basic. And that's you almost saying, I respect and value what you do in your house. Yeah. And when I'm in your house, I'm going to do that too. Mm-hmm. And whilst I may not do that in my house, I have a shared sense of respect for you as another human being to adapt my ways whilst I'm in your house. And I think there's something quite powerful about that.
Oh, definitely. And I think that it's really important as a mother that you pass on that we do it this way, but other people might not, and you've got to respect that. People have got different boundaries. If you're unsure, you need to ask. I always say that to my children, if you don't know what's acceptable in people's homes, if you go somewhere, like people will ask then, oh, do you want some food? I was talking to somebody a fortnight ago, taking a statement for a little story we've been putting together, and she said to me, in her mum's culture, funny we should talk about this, but in her mum's culture, it's customary to ask people have they eaten. And in a time of crisis, there was an incident, her mother should have been in a panic situation, and instead she asked the paramedics, have they eaten? And they were sort of like, what? You're asking us if we've eaten, but we need to be there. But that's how she'd been brought up. It was instilled in her. So I do pass this on to my children and explain to them that although we are very relaxed in our house, I'm quite an open, approachable parent, whatever you need to come to me as. But not every household is like that.
People do different things. Yeah. But I think it's a skill. It's a massive transferable skill. It's like a life skill to be able to, essentially you're code switching.
Of course you are.
In different spaces. And it's not always a good thing. Sometimes you do it just to fit in work, or you do it to fit into an environment. But sometimes you need to do it for survival. Kind of finding harmony between when you're doing it out of respect and because it's okay, and when you're doing it because you feel unsafe. And I think finding that balance between culture, because I guess culture isn't always good. There's bad culture.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But also you don't want to be rude. And I think that's a very good talent that humans possess, is we can mask, I think is the word, isn't it? Mask not to offend. Some people go out of their way to offend, don't get me wrong. However, it's really polite not to be rude and to bend over, I think, to please and not make other people feel uncomfortable, especially in their own environment.
That's where you've hit the nail on the head. Because I think if we go back to talking about in our own house, so in your own house, it's fine. And then I think when you're in a shared space, so when you're in work or when you're at an event or when you're in public spaces, the rules are all out the window then. Because now everybody is entitled to bring themselves to this shared space. So then how do you find harmony or find balance or agree what the norms are and what's culturally okay in a shared space that isn't in your house? It's a whole nother game. I feel like sometimes as well, like, I think it's okay to be rude sometimes. Because sometimes I think we might feel like we need to reserve ourselves or hold back from saying something. But actually, because you're trained to think, oh, that's rude. But sometimes you just need to be like, actually, do you know what? Just enough.
Agreed.
You've said enough. We actually don't want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
Can you take that somewhere else, please?
Yeah.
And even then, I'm doing that in a polite way.
Yeah.
My friend would be like, she'll say some words that I can't say on air,
Yeah.
but like, she'd say something completely different. But like, sometimes you just need to like, do you know what, enough.
But again, though, that's how you brought up and your own personality, that is, isn't it? Some people don't know how to be not rude and they don't know how to make other people not feel uncomfortable, whether that's the way they've been brought up, that's their culture in their house, but they've not learned that they can hold back their forceful opinions then sometimes and not offend people. So it's about the balance between us being able to say, I'm fire, what you're saying there is not very nice, but that's us being polite, but telling them enough's enough. So yeah, it's a clash of cultures.
I think for me as well, you said something interesting. It's like some people don't know how to hold back.
Personality comes from your mother up to whatever you've made it into. I'm not the same person as I was as a child or as a teenager. You learn how to change your own ways, I think, isn't it? And how do I want to be as an adult? So it is hard. I've definitely still got some beliefs and 100% things my mother has instilled in me as a child. But I've changed a lot of that as I've got older and passed a lot of my new family traditions, I think we call them, on to my kids, yeah.
Love that. Our mutual interest is powered by Merthyr Valleys Homes.